The opinions expressed by the host and guests in this show are not necessarily the views of Children's Health Defense.
Good morning, CHD. It is Monday, the 15th of December, 2025. We have breaking news for you this morning. The headline here from the defender that's just come out now is Children's Health Defense sues New York in bid to overturn religious exemption ban. Children's Health Defense sues New York. Well, I'm going to be on Mary Holland, our CEO and President of Children's Health Defense, to take this segment with Sujata Gibson and Kim Mack-Rosenberg. Morning, Mary. It's very exciting.
Holly, it's very exciting. Thank you so much for this opportunity. So I'm delighted to have Sujata Gibson, the lead attorney on this case, and our general counsel, Kim Mack-Rosenberg, with us to break down exactly what this means. So Sujata, give us the big picture, the contour of this case. Why are we bringing it now? What's it about? What might happen as a result of this filing? You're on mute, Sujata.
Sorry. Good morning. It's so great to be here. So this case seeks to restore the religious exemption in New York State. This is a direct challenge against the state, saying that it is unconstitutional to have a complete ban on religious exemptions. New York is one of 4 states, I believe, right now that still does not allow religious or personal belief exceptions. The vast majority of the country is able to offer them without any remarkable difference, any material difference at all in public health outcomes. But New York has been refusing religious accommodations since a 2019 repeal. And it has been very difficult to challenge that. We've been engaging in litigation for 6 years, but I think we have finally arrived at the moment due to 2 really important Supreme Court decisions in the last year where we can bring this challenge, and we have a very good chance of winning.
So we, Children's Health Defense and the broader health freedom movement, have been asserting that there must be a right to religious exemption for 6 years, but we've frankly been unsuccessful, and we've been to the Supreme Court on this issue a few times. Kim, explain to us why it is that we think that this moment is ripe for this challenge.
Sure. So as Sujata mentioned, there have been some recent Supreme Court decisions that have sort of opened the door to new challenges. And the first was a case called Mahmoud v. Taylor, which was handed down by the court in June of 2025. And Mahmoud v. Taylor was not in the context of vaccines. It was in the context of parental and religious rights regarding teaching with respect to LGBTQT materials in the classroom and the ability to opt out from that. But there was some great language in Mahmoud about the extent to which parental and religious rights should be confirmed and acknowledged and accepted. And then just last week in Miller v. McDonald, in the vaccine context, in a case with respect to the Amish community in New York State, the court did what they did a vacatur. They sent this case, they vacated the decision by the Second Circuit, which is the federal circuit that oversees New York State, and sent the case back down to the Second Circuit. So the decision that was in place in the Second Circuit, which was appealed through a petition for writ of certiorari to the Supreme Court, was vacated. It doesn't exist anymore. And they were told to basically reevaluate their decision, reissue their decision in light of the Mahmoud case.
Okay. So, and I think, looking at the Mahmoud case, let's talk about, Sujata, what were the key elements of Mahmoud that you believe would apply here in this case of CHD versus the Commissioner of Health of New York State?
Well, this sequence couldn't have happened at a better time. We have a case where we were arguing Mahmoud, and the judge just said, well, I have to apply Miller until it's vacated, and it just was. And this case is related to that. It's the Sarah Doe case. But what did Mahmoud do? Mahmoud dismantled New York State's and the Second Circuit's reasoning for why these fundamental rights don't get judicial scrutiny. So in constitutional law, there's kind of two different levels. You either have a fundamental right and you get strict scrutiny, which means the government really has to prove that there's no less restrictive way to meet their goal, or you get rational basis and the government basically always wins with no real analysis of the facts or need. So far we've been, funneled into that rational basis world, and that the same thing happened in Miller. But Mahmoud took away the reasoning for that. The Second Circuit has been saying, well, yes, fundamental rights are being infringed, religion, parental rights, all these rights that are unquestionably fundamental. But we think that as long as parents can still homeschool, those rights aren't actually infringed, so they don't get strict scrutiny.
So
Mahmoud called that insulting and legally unsound. So
I love that, right? That's so amazing that they said that's not an option. Homeschooling is not the same as having your child be able to go to school and be with peers and access all the services that are required. So amazing. So this hinges on the standard of review. Is that right, Sujata, that even though the LGBT really is completely unrelated to vaccines, the fact that Mahmoud said homeschooling is not an option, you have to use strict scrutiny, that's really what the difference is right now from what it was in the past. Is that right?
Absolutely. And so when we argued in Sarah Doe, because that's a case we won on medical grounds, but the judge expressed skepticism about the religious claims. We argued, look, the Supreme Court just dismantled this argument the Second Circuit has been using. Let's get strict scrutiny now. And the judge said, my hands are tied, even if that's true, until the Supreme Court actually vacates the Miller decision. I have to follow Miller. Well, they've just vacated the Miller decision.
So just to clarify, the judge in that case, Sarah Doe, where we had this victory a few months ago, that judge explicitly said, I have to follow Miller. I would like to follow Mahmoud, but I can't until Miller's vacated. Is that what he said on the record?
He didn't express a preference for whether he wants to follow Mahmoud or not, but he said he can't consider my arguments that the Supreme Court already addressed this until Miller is vacated. And beautifully, last week in Aaron Seery's case, which we really should all be so thankful for his work on that case. He did it beautifully and really set this up for victory for families across the state. But in Miller, the Supreme Court not only vacated Miller, but they sent it back with the express instruction that the Second Circuit has to issue a new decision in light of Mahmoud. So that takes care of the second question that people had about Mahmoud, because sometimes courts try to say that maybe, rulings don't apply in vaccine cases because it's about public health. But their direction to apply Mahmoud strongly signals that they do actually apply to this vaccine mandate, just like any other context.
Yeah. Kim, can you tell us a little bit more about that Miller versus McDonald case that, as Sujata has said, really set up this renewed Children's Health Defense versus McDonald case?
Sure. And I just apologize. My video, for some reason, is a little wonky this morning there. I'm frozen. So Miller is a case that was brought up in northern New York State, for Amish families. It was brought on behalf of Amish school children attending an Amish school, and whether or not, this group, who very traditionally has not vaccinated, by and large, has not vaccinated their children, and whether or not they could exercise their rights, their free exercise rights under the First Amendment, to not vaccinate their children and have them attend this school in their community. And they lost in the initial, I believe they lost the initial lawsuit. Sujata can confirm that for me. In the district court, they went up to the Second Circuit where they lost that. So they did what's called a petition for writ of certiorari to the Supreme Court of the United States. And the Supreme Court just last week said, you know what? Look, we have Mahmoud v. Taylor out there, which changes the level of scrutiny that has to be applied in these types of cases, or clarifies which level of scrutiny has to be applied. That has to be applied in this case too. So we're not going to issue a decision one way or the other on Miller v. McDonald, but we are sending it back to the Second Circuit with clear instructions as to which case law they should follow.
Thanks, Kim. And I think one of the things that to me was so significant about that petition to the Supreme Court is that 21 attorney generals supported the Miller plaintiffs or the Miller appellants in that case in order to get the Supreme Court to take the case, which they did. They said, we take it and we send it back for the Second Circuit to look at in light of Mahmoud. And a second amicus brief, friend of the court brief from Florida, explicitly discussed the issue of why strict scrutiny should apply. So I think the fact that all of these, half the country, essentially, the legal representatives of half the country told the Supreme Court, you got to take this case, I think that probably had a lot to do with why they did take it and send it back to the Second Circuit. Sujata, tell us a little bit about the 7 families that are party to this lawsuit together with Children's Health Defense. Why is this case so important to those families?
Well, Mary, as you know, families have just been devastated by what happened in 2019. Over 26,000 children lost the right to go to school unless their parents violated their sincerely held religious beliefs. These 7 families are representative of a portion of those harms. Some of them have had to move to other states. One of them had to move to another state where his children can go to school, but he still has to commute to New York City 4 hours every day, back and forth, and barely gets to see his kids. Another family lives here in Staten Island, but they have to send their children to school in New Jersey. So they have to pay for private school in New Jersey and drive another punishing commute every day back and forth. There are children at imminent risk of harm. One of the stories that breaks my heart the most is a little boy with Down syndrome. Well, he's 17 now, not a little boy, but a boy with Down syndrome who is just a remarkable young man and has been through so much. He had a religious exemption in Minnesota, or they call it a personal belief exemption there. But when they moved back, he had a medical exemption that was revoked in last April, and he's been without services, really vitally needed services since last April. His speech is being impacted. He started stuttering again. His vision is being impacted. He's got a condition that's making him actually lose his vision, and this is without the vision services that it's getting worse. And there's so many different things I could say, but it's really horrific. New York won't give him any of the mandated services he needs, unless his mother violates her beliefs. Yeah. And there's a child that is at imminent risk of being kicked out of school. Her and her sister had to homeschool for the last 6 years. But finally this year, she got a medical exemption and went back in the fall, and it was approved. And she thought, I can finally relax. I can finally be a normal kid. I mean, the results have been devastating on these children. Like, she developed diagnosed depression and anxiety, and her sister developed an eating disorder from being excluded this long. But they finally are back, and she thought it was okay. And then suddenly a few weeks ago, the Department of Health recommended that the medical exemption be revoked. So she has a temporary exemption until January 20th, but if her family does not violate their beliefs by then, she'll be kicked out again. And ironically, her sister, though, gets to stay in school fully unvaccinated the whole year because New York's law ends at the age of 18. So if you're 18 and over, you can go to school unvaccinated. Apparently, you're no longer a public health threat. But when you're 16, apparently you can't be accommodated in any way.
Sujata, thanks so much. I really hope that people will take a look at this Defender article about this breaking new filing and read the complaint that Sujata and Christina Martinez put together. The story of these families is so compelling in so many different ways. The repeal of the religious exemption has been so unjust and has put children literally in harm's way in many, many different ways. Well, we will stay on top of this story. Thank you so much, Polly. Thank you, Sujata. Thank you, Kim. And we will definitely be following this going forward.
Thank you so
Back to
much.
you, Polly. Thanks, Sujata.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Thank you, Sujata. Yes, amazing work going on there. And thank you to all of you who donate to Children's Health Defence, because you make it possible for us to be able to do things with our amazing legal team like that. So please keep continuing, because we've got a lot more places to sue. Right, I'm going to bring on Emily. Good morning. No, sorry, Heidi. I apologise. Emily's coming on with Bella in a minute, but I'm going to bring on Heidi. Good morning, Heidi. How are you?
Good morning. It's great to be here today. Thank you so much for having me on.
Well, this is a very important story, and we have covered a few stories like this before, but not enough. So we really appreciate you coming on and talking about dental implants and the horrific things that happen from them. So first of all, take us right back and tell us why you had an implant in the first place.
So I went to go see a new dentist, and I thought the best way to get established would be to go in and have a routine teeth cleaning. During that, he told me that my root canal tooth, he didn't tell me that root canals are toxic. He told me that the material that they fill it with is toxic, so that he had to empty out the root canal chamber and fill it with another substance. So I agreed to do that. I believed him, and he didn't know what he was doing. He went out the root chamber. He ended up damaging that tooth so bad it had to be extracted, and damaging the tooth next to it, that I had to get an implant. Or I'm sorry, root canal. So a root canal and an implant. So that's what, started the journey.
Heidi, do we know what the substance is that they put in there?
I do not know, but I think, I think, he just makes, money, harming people. But I don't know the substance that he replaced it with.
Okay, so you ended up having an implant in there.
Yes. So, so I went to an oral surgeon, and he placed the dental implant. He told me that the implant was titanium, that it was, biocompatible, that it was safe, that, that it was safe. But what happened, to me, so my implant was placed 15 years ago, and I could have never imagined the nightmare that I would face today. I was told, as I said, the implant was safe, that it was compatible, and for 8 years, everything, appeared normal until it wasn't. The things I was never told that the implant was, not pure titanium, but the titanium implants can, and do contain other metals such as aluminum and nickel. And I was never informed that these metals can corrode over time in your mouth, releasing particles that can enter the bloodstream that affect, the body far beyond the implant site. I wasn't warned that about the immune or the autoimmune reactions could be delayed, and that the symptoms might even appear years after implantation rather than immediately. For me, the first sign was swelling of the gum tissue around the implant site. From there, my health declined slowly and steadily. I developed persistent redness and inflammation, painful crater-like lesions in my throat, and episodes of swelling and pus. And over the past 7 years, I've suffered from a progressive autoimmune related symptoms, and my symptoms have only progressively been getting worse. Today, I live in constant pain in my teeth, the roof of my mouth, my tongue. I experience ongoing tongue swelling, burning pin and needle sensation throughout my body, and chronic inflammation in my throat. what began, as a routine dental procedure has become a chronic, life-altering condition. What finally explained my symptoms did not come from dentistry. They came from immune science. Through the work of Dr. Vera Stay-School, an immunologist who had spent decades studying how the immune system can react to metals in the body, I learned that metal implants can trigger a delayed immune reaction, and these reactions are driven by immune cells called T cells that are known as a type of IV hypersensitivity. Unlike typical allergies, these reactions do not happen right away and often do not show up on standard allergy tests or patch tests. Dr. Stay-School developed a test called the Melissa test. It's a blood test that measures how a person's immune cells respond to specific metals used in implants. Her research explained how tiny medical particles released through corrosion can slowly activate the immune system over time, leading to chronic, inflammation, neurological systems, and autoimmune type illnesses. So yeah, I'm glad, to be here today to,
And Heidi, one of the reasons you are here today is to ask you, the people, the viewers, do you know anyone who can help Heidi? She really is desperate in need of help. She's in a lot of pain. She needs some legal representation. Will you tell us, Heidi, what is it that you're looking for?
Yes, so I am looking to have the dental implant removed. And the dental implant, the oral surgeon who placed the implant, he refuses to remove it on the basis that he said there's no infection, in the site, in the implant site, right? So I believe that, our dental industry needs to, number one, be educated, on, immune issues that can develop due to these metals in the body. And, that there needs to be disclosure, there needs to be informed consent, there needs to be a national adverse event registry tracking immune reactions, corrosion, and the symptomatic illness that, a lot of people are suffering from. There's just, no updated dental or medical, education, built on immune science. And, there's a lot of people out there that are suffering just like me in silence, right? We've gone to doctor after doctor, and the industry just chases the symptoms, right? They would probably, if I wasn't educated and didn't come across, Dr. Vera Stay-School's research, they probably would have labeled me with a zillion different conditions and put me on autoimmune suppressants the rest of my life, right? So it's important to get down, to the root cause and issues of this. And it is, the metals, the corrosion and the metals being released in the body.
Yeah. And Heidi, I mean, what's your advice to parents? I mean, for me, it's, really choose your dentist very carefully, because we've had so many stories of situations like yours, and children having unnecessary fillings and fluoride treatments. And you're right, it's becoming a money-making industry going to the dentist. So please, parents, be very, very careful where you go. You can get good holistic dentists. And also, the other thing to tell you all is, if you haven't seen the movie Root Cause, ROOT, Root Cause, see it. We did play it on CHD TV. I'm not sure if it's on our website right now, but it was taken down faster than Vax, the movie. That's how they don't want you to watch them. That's about root cause root canals and the dangers of root canal, the connection between breast cancer as well. So you do want to watch that, or try and find it. It's hard to find because it's like playing whack-a-mole with that movie.
Yeah.
So tell us your advice to young mothers. I think it's important.
Yeah, so yes, I love, root cause. Watching root cause is what, led me down the pathway to do more research, right? And that's, how I found out about, the Melissa testing and Dr. Vera's Day School. But without that root cause movie, I would have, just thought, oh, I wouldn't have had any answers. I've been searching for answers for 7 years. And until I watched that movie, a trigger went off. It's probably the implant, right? Because for 7 years, I've been going to the dentist. I've been going to the oral surgeon. Look, it's this. My symptoms are progressively getting worse. But yeah, there's just no education out there about that. But what I would suggest, honestly, to look at other materials, right? Look into the zirconia implants if you are looking to get an implant. I would do the Melissa testing because they can test you to see your sensitivity levels to these materials that they use for implants before you get the implant. And if you're suffering with autoimmune issues and have a dental implant, you could go, get your blood tested at the Melissa site. And when you get those results back, then you could bring it to your oral surgeon and say, look, it is, the metals in my body that are causing these immune issues.
Yeah, or maybe
Right?
just stay away from dentists in the first place.
Yeah.
Right. Heidi, I want to tell people how they can contact you. So if you're watching this now and you can help Heidi, please do contact her. And how can they do that, Heidi?
Yes, you can reach out to me at heidi.bond@betrayalprojectusa.org. I'm searching for a very good oral surgeon that is educated in the removal of the titanium dental implants.
Because you feel like you're very sick. I mean, I've spoken on the
Yes.
phone.
Yes, it's 24 hours a day, pin and needle sensation. Like I said, my teeth, the roof of my mouth, the chronic inflammation in my throat, it doesn't leave my body. And the symptoms, they started, 7 years ago, but they're progressively getting worse. And now it's like a fast track. It's just, I don't know how much longer I can continue like this. So I really need help.
Heidi, thank you so much for coming on this morning and telling us what happened to you. It's a big warning for people out there as well. And I know that there's people out there that can help you. So keep us updated on how you are. And thank you again for being here this morning.
Thank you, Polly.
All right, we're going to hand over to Mothers-to-be, Bella Yon, and she has a great guest this morning.
Mothers-to-be segment where we chat all things preconception, pregnancy, birth, and postpartum. Today, I'm joined by the lovely Emily Kennedy. She is a doula and she's a mama, and she's here to talk all about home birth and parenting and all of her mama wisdom. So welcome, Emily. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Hi, thank you. I'm so glad to be here.
For people meeting you for the first time, can you just tell us a little bit about you and your family?
I am a teacher and I'm also a doula. I have 2 biological children and 2 stepchildren. I live in Kentucky along the Kentucky River. I love nature. I love the farmers market, and I really have a passion for working with children of all ages.
Amazing. Amazing. Well, let's start off by talking about your births. I know you've probably seen so many births and have 1,000 stories to share, but let's talk about your births. So your first birth, I believe, was a hospital birth. Is that right?
Mhm.
Do you mind sharing a little bit about that experience?
Yeah, I seriously considered a home birth with my first Gabriel, and it really was a financial insurance decision. Unfortunately, I've seen so many women make that choice to not have a home birth because insurance will cover it in the hospital. Overall, I had an incredibly positive experience. I did use a midwife in the hospital, and I really educated myself ahead of time. I stayed home as long as I could. I was actually dilated to a 10 by the time I got to the hospital. And so as far as a hospital birth can go, it was very positive. Everything that I was disappointed about was all hospital policy. It was the midwife having to do this or do that because it was hospital policy. I was heartbroken the night after he was born when the nurses walked in and said, "What are you doing? Why are you holding him? You can't hold him while he's sleeping." Because it's hospital policy for the baby to sleep in its bed. So through that experience, I really gained a lot of confidence that I could give birth naturally and that I wanted to do it at home where I wasn't being restricted by a big organization.
Yeah. Wow, that's so interesting. And then so for your second, you did decide on a home birth, is that correct? And
Yes.
tell me about that experience. Tell me about that birth.
So my second was a water birth at home, and at the time, actually in Kentucky, it was illegal to be a certified practicing midwife. It wasn't illegal to give birth at home, but it was difficult finding a midwife, and that whole process was pretty foreign. This was just 12 years ago. But I had an amazing midwife, and she was just incredibly supportive, incredibly nurturing of me the whole time. She really included Gabriel, who was 4.5 at the time, in listening to the heartbeat and just making it feel like a whole family experience. I went into labor in the middle of the night, and she was born 6 hours later. Everything was, I mean, it was just an incredibly beautiful, incredibly peaceful experience. I think the sweetest moment of the birth for me was after she was born. I was holding her, and the midwife looked at me and said, "I don't want you to get out of bed for 3 days. I want you to stay in bed holding her on your chest, and I want her to sleep on you. I want, I just want you to bond with her and breastfeed her all the time." And I remember feeling so overwhelmed by this sense of, I am being told by my practitioner to follow my motherly instinct. And it was just such a beautiful moment of feeling like everything I want to do and that I think is right, I get to do now.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so powerful. Let's chat a little bit about those first few days postpartum. Do you have any advice for new mamas on what they can be doing? I mean, I know rest isn't such a huge part of it, but any tips for kind of making those first few days so beautiful and a just peaceful, unhurried experience?
I think just giving themselves the permission to rest. Like, yes, rest is important, but receiving that rest is needed and is beautiful and is a gift to your baby and is a gift to yourself, and just really believing like I am worth it. Like I hear so many moms brag about how quickly they got up and started walking around and went to the grocery store or went to church. And I think it perpetuates this idea that if you're a strong mother, that you can just jump right back into life right after having a baby. And it takes strength to set a boundary and say, no, I'm going to do what's best for my body right now, and I'm going to rest. And even if I feel like I can do more, that doesn't mean I should. And that doesn't mean, well, I mean, I think there's going to be consequences later on. You're going to struggle more with postpartum depression. You're going to struggle more with healing, with breastfeeding, if you don't just set that boundary and say, this is what I'm going to do because it's what's best for me.
Yeah, so, so good. And so what led you to become a doula? When did you decide, and what made you decide to be like, okay, I want to do this?
I had seriously considered becoming a midwife, and through a series of just circumstances, I ended up teaching. And through teaching and spending a lot of time working with kids and working with families, doing lots of parent conferences, I realized that no matter how hard I tried as a teacher to change the lives of my students, nothing was really going to change unless their parents were on board. And so when I thought about, like, okay, well, what's the root cause of struggles between parents and kids? And I think it goes back to birth. It goes back to when this child was born, was a strong bond created? When this child was born, did the parents feel confident? Did someone walk in the room and say, why are you holding your child right now when they're sleeping? Or did someone say, just hold and cuddle your baby for 3 days?
Yeah.
And so if I can instill in parents the confidence that they know their child, they know themselves, they are the best advocate for their child, the decisions they're making are good, then that's going to benefit their child for the rest of their life. It's going to benefit their kid when they're learning their multiplication facts. So at the time, it just was too much with my family and with our kids and stuff for me to go back to school to be a midwife. So I felt like a doula was a good in between of being able to speak into the lives of families in a birth context while just being a good mom at my own house.
Yeah, that's so awesome. And I know you've been the doula to some of our CHD TV staff. So you really are the CHD doula. I love it. Let's talk a little bit about your teaching. So I know that you mentioned you teach children, I believe from kinder, so pretty young, all the way through high school. Is that right? What are you noticing about like the needs of kids and teens today?
So I used to teach in public school, and now I'm teaching at, it's technically a homeschool co-op, but it really functions like more of an alternative private school. We have 70 students from kindergarten through 12th grade, and I teach social studies. And what we're really noticing is the impact, the negative impact of technology on the way that children are learning. So we have a lot of parents who come to us and say, my child is on a Chromebook the entire day at school. They don't have textbooks anymore. We don't know how to help them at home because everything's just online. They're getting overwhelmed. They're irritated. It's making ADHD worse. And so they're wanting to come to our school to have less technology. Where I'm also seeing that the more kids are online, the less they think for themselves. Google automatically is telling you how to fix all of your grammar mistakes and even suggesting the next word for you to write in a sentence. And so it's really taking away a lot of really important brain development in kids learning how to process, learning how to fix mistakes, gaining confidence in themselves and in their own abilities as a student. And I think the constant screen time at school is it really overwhelms a lot of students to the point where they can't effectively learn.
Yeah, wow. And we're seeing it younger and younger. I mean, my kids are young. My oldest just turned 4, and I'm seeing it amongst his peers even, already utilizing screens for the sake of learning. But of course, we grew up without any of that. Do you have any advice for parents navigating kind of the popularity and culture of screens in today's society? And how can they set boundaries there, or what can they do to try and limit it, without being seen as crazy or without their kids freaking out? Do you have any tips?
I'm not sure how to do that without seeming crazy. I think it's just really important for parents to advocate for their children. And I tell my kids, like, the reason we have these rules is because I love your brain. So I love your brain so much that I'm saying you can't get on a screen without asking me first. I love you your brain so much that like your phone has to stay by the front door and not be carried around the house with you. I think it's really important for parents to talk to schools, to communicate with schools. Like, I'm more interested in my child reading a chapter book than in an online reading program. You're sending home this homework for my child on an online math program. Can you please send a different paper option instead? We would prefer not to have more screen time than necessary. So just keeping lines of communication very open with schools, with school boards, with teachers, and being cheerful in the way that you're communicating with your own kids and explaining to them how important the decisions you're making are, helping them to understand for themselves how to set limits and how to have boundaries.
Yeah, so good. And then for mums who, maybe are off put or fed up with the public school system, how do mums go about finding a school like the one that you teach at? How do they find these resources?
For me, I found the school through a friend, and I was looking into it for my daughter. And then as I was talking to the director, I just said, would you have any openings for a teacher? And so my daughter and I started there together. I think that asking other people and just looking online, but trying to put feelers out when you meet other parents that seem to have a similar parenting philosophy, just asking like, hey, what are you doing about education? And I think looking at different homeschool groups in your state, there are often co-ops. And so even if someone's not using a co-op or part of a co-op, they might have suggestions from other friends.
Amazing. Thank you. And so we always end our segment with one question, and it can be anything. It can be birth, it can be anything related, but it's, if you had one piece of advice for either a new or an expecting mama, what would it be?
I think it would be to trust yourself, that there's no one who's going to know your body or your baby better than you. So if you know something is wrong, then trust that. If you know there's something you need to do, then trust yourself.
Yeah, so good. And Emily, how can people find you, your doula work, your teaching work? How can people get in contact with you if they have questions or want to work with you in some capacity?
I don't know. I'm not on social media at all. I do all my doula stuff through just word of mouth. I have worked some with an organization called the Birth Haven in Lexington, Kentucky. And the school that I attend or that I teach at is called Wilmore Crossing Academy. So you can find my school email on the Wilmore Crossing Academy website and through the Birth Haven in Lexington.
Amazing. And if you guys have questions, maybe you can just reach out to us here at CHD TV and we can always forward them to Emily to contact with you. Amazing. Emily, thank you so much for coming on today and sharing your wisdom in both the birth space and the teaching space. We really appreciate it. And I'm sure so many mamas like me learned so much from you. So thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you guys for tuning in. We will see you all next week for another Mothers to Be episode. For now, stay tuned for our People Study of the Day.
I'm the county chair, so, I got to show up in all my garb.
We're live now. Tell us your name, please.
MJ Bolt.
And how many children have you got?
I have 2.
And this is about your eldest child?
This is about my youngest son.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so let's talk first of all about when you were pregnant. Did you and your husband have any conversation about vaccinations at all?
No. No conversations about vaccinations. Really never heard anything about it until after my boys were born.
Okay, so we're going to talk about your second child. So how was the pregnancy? Did you have any vaccinations during pregnancy?
No pregnancies during vaccination, or no vaccinations during pregnancy, correct.
How was he when he was born?
He was fine as far as we knew. He was a little bit difficult labor, but not as hard as the first one.
Okay, and so did he have Hep B and vitamin K at birth?
Everything, and he did have Pictosin too. They had to help me deliver him. He was a big boy. So I did have some Pictosin, if I remember.
Yeah, which is what they give you in pregnancy
to help
bring the placenta or bring
help get the help.
Okay, so you stuck on the CDC schedule, did as you were told. When did you notice something was wrong?
Well, after the MMR, so about 18 months with my second son, I noticed they had a rash and had some other earaches and stuff, and I'm pretty sure he got some antibiotics at that time too, but he stopped talking, and I didn't really it didn't really dawn on me until later, until I learned more about autism. But he stopped talking for 2 years. He had started talking, he had started saying mama, dada, and we had 2 sons 18 months apart, so life was a little crazy, and so I wasn't right on top of it. My other son was slow to speak, but then once he started speaking, he was super verbal, and so I wasn't too worried about it, but he certainly did stop talking for 2 years.
And how old is he now?
He's 26.
So this CDC schedule was nothing like we're seeing now.
Nothing, not even close.
Okay, so what happened after that? When did you realize it was the vaccination?
Yeah, when we moved to the Spokane Valley, which is where we live now, they had an autism program, and he was 5, and he was already qualified in special ed preschool because of his delayed speech. And when we got here, they said, MJ, we think he has autism. And so I started researching it, and we got him diagnosed to get him the assistance and the help that he needed. And as I started researching it, we did some testing, got into some holistic testing, and he tested toxic in 12 metals, off the charts toxic. Number 1, mercury, number 2, aluminum, and on down the list. And that's when I started to realize, mercury poisoning, a lot of that has the delayed speech. And so, doing a ton of research, trying to figure out what's going on, what's causing it, what can I do. Got onto the Yahoo groups at the time. That was, where we dug and did research, and a lot of other parents around the country, around the world, were finding those same things. So there was definitely a connection. And I never vaccinated after that. Yeah.
Both boys?
Yeah.
And so your older child, he was what, 28 or something?
Yeah, 28, and he doesn't have, we didn't test him. He's normal functioning.
Does he understand the dangers of vaccinations? Does he get it?
Both of them, or my oldest, or
both of them?
Yeah. Yes, we talk about it. Yeah, because I talk to Preston a lot. He's higher functioning, but he's delayed quite a bit too. He probably will always live with me. And so my oldest definitely understands that, and we talk about it, and my younger son too, because I share his story quite a bit, and it's a big deal, especially after COVID. With the vaccine.
How did they both do during COVID with the pressure to get the shot?
Everything was shut down here, so we were all at home hanging out because their jobs, were they were sent home. They didn't have jobs for months and months and months. My youngest son, Preston, who we're talking about, that has autism. He works, a few hours a week at a restaurant. And so yeah, there was never a question that they would get we realized really quickly that was about the vaccination, and this thing was not a good thing. And
did you get COVID, all of you?
We never tested.
No.
Maybe we got a cold. Maybe.
And none of you have myocarditis, pericarditis?
None of us got vaccinated.
Or any of those things?
And actually, I realized during COVID that because of what happened to Preston, it made us, for 20 years, I haven't been able to trust the government, quite honestly. And it probably saved us, honestly, because we knew we couldn't trust the government with this COVID vaccination. Yeah.
What's your advice to the young mum that is confused?
I know it's hard. There's a lot of information out there, and there's a lot of pressure. I think research. There's so many of us that this has happened to, and I plead with my relatives. But I also understand. There's a ton of pressure to go along with the CD schedule, but you can save your child. And of course, there's so many kids that are way worse off than Preston, and he's a blessing. It's been a blessing, but it's been very hard. So do your research, trust your gut. It's not worth it. It's not worth it. And I know there's a trade-off. I know I have a niece that talked to a few months ago, and in order for her to continue her job and continue her, education and be on that track, she has to get her baby vaccinated in order to do daycare. And I love her, and I, will never judge her, but I pled with her, if you could do any way else, do it.
Because we both know that once your child is injured, you can't work anyway.
Right. It's a lifetime.
Nothing is worth it.
Right. Yeah. And if I could do, and once I realized it was, there was a book I read, and it showed me the rates of autism, and the UK was about 10 years behind us in increasing on the CDC schedule, and it mirrored the rates, it paralleled the rates of autism, the increase. And then I read that UK backed off on their schedule. And once I saw that evidence and that research, I cried for weeks, realizing I could have prevented this. Yeah.
You never could have.
Yeah.
We didn't know.
And the doctors don't at all give you anything. I had some people that said, MJ, are you going to vaccinate your boys? And I'm like, what are you talking about? And when I asked the doctors, they just poo-pooed it. Yeah.
Thank you for sitting here and telling us your story and warning the people.
Yes, thank you.
This and all CHD TV programming is made possible by generous support from viewers like you. Please consider making a contribution today to keep our programming going strong. Thank you.